Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games. We've got a problem here. Our dryer stopped working at the house, so we're going to try to fix it. This is a Whirlpool Duet Sport model. I've been reading about it a little bit, but the whole deal is most of these Whirlpools, and I believe some of the Maytags, have the same type of issue. So what will happen is when you go to start it, the motor won't run. You can turn it on, get lights and everything, but over here you will get an error code. It'll say E-01, error 01. So if you get that problem, that's telling you that there is a problem with the main control board that controls everything. And so it's a power distribution problem on the board, or a communication problem, or there's some kind of issue where it can't talk to the board like it wants to. So I'm going to show you how to fix it, possibly for free. Yeah, you heard me right, for free. It's a pretty common problem, and what a lot of people do is they will buy a replacement board, which you can do, but sometimes the old board can be repaired because they all, well, I don't want to say all, but a lot of them have the same problem that pops up and is killing a bunch of these boards. Now this thing's like 10 years old, so you might be ready to get a new dryer anyway, but not me. I like old stuff, so I'm going to keep this dryer until I can't fix it anymore. Not really a financial thing. I can afford to go buy a new one, but I just hate throwing out things that just need a little work, you know? So if it's something that I can handle and fix, I'm going to fix it. And a lot of people out there that may be watching this video, if yours is doing the same thing, maybe it is a financial issue with you. Maybe you can't afford to pay over $100 for a new control board, or $700 or $800 or whatever it is for a new dryer. So hopefully this will help you fix yours. You can at least if yours is working, if your machine's working, don't do this, just turn this video off. But if your machine is not working, really, what are you going to hurt by trying this? It's not dangerous or anything, or not extremely dangerous, and it might save you some money. So you can at least check out what I'm going to fix on mine and see if that fixes yours. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to slide the dryer out from the wall a little bit, just so we can get some room to work on it. And our issue, what we need to work on, is underneath this top cover. So it's fairly easy to get to. Okay, so it's a little dark back here, but we've got a gas line running to it, we've got an exhaust hose running to it, and a power cord. Unplug your power cord. You don't have to unplug your gas line if it's long enough. You don't have to unplug your dryer hose, your vent hose, if it's long enough. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to slide this out that far. We've got it a few feet out, but you don't have to do that. If you can, basically, there are 3 screws on the back at the very top that you're going to take this top panel off. And if you can reach around there to these screws, then that's far enough out. So there are 3 screws that we're going to take out first. This one, and this one. And that is going to allow us to get to the control board, which is up here in the top. So on yours, you may not have to slide it out from the wall. On ours, it was real simple to do that. Once you remove the 3 screws from the back, the top will just slide right off by just sliding it backwards. Take the top off the machine. Once you remove the top, very simple. You've got this plate here with the control board mounted on it. So to remove this, there's a screw down on the bottom. You've got some wires here and things. But the easiest way to do it is to take this plate up and off of here. It's very simple. There's just 2 screws holding it in place, and these are all 1/4" screws. So the same nut driver that you use to take the top off. Just pop this up, and we'll set it up to where we can remove the harness and everything. Alright, so once you get those 2 screws loose, you can pull this whole assembly up and start unplugging your harness, which is very simple. There's a little squeeze connector on the side, and just pull all the wires off. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plugs on this model. It might be a little different on other models. And by doing that, you'll expose this little screw here that can be removed. It's a 1/4 inch. no big deal. Everything's a 1/4 inch, by the way. And on the back of this, you can see where there's a little slot where this little tab holds the board in. So if you put that tab down, it allows you to be able to slide this to the side and it pops up off of the unit. Once you get it out of the machine, there's this little cover on the top with 2 little clips that you can pop apart. If I can do it with one hand. And this will come off, and underneath you've got the board. Now it's in this holder, and if you look very carefully on the edges, there's just these little clips that are holding the board in place. So you have to take this end out first because this end slides underneath. So you need to, it's kind of tricky, but you have to get a screwdriver or something, and if you push underneath these clips, you will move them back far enough to get them off of the board. Finagle it around a little bit and you can slide the board out of the holder. Got the board out, and this is what the plastic inside looked like. See the char marks? So you may see something similar. So let's look at the back of the board. So here is what you're left with once you get the board out of the case. We've got it on our workbench here, so we're going to mess with it. Now you can see by looking at it that nothing looks damaged. Everything looks cool, right? But that doesn't really mean anything. Any of these parts could be bad and just look fine. So sometimes things go bad and you can't tell by looking at them. You have to test them or just substitute it in another one. But in this case, luckily, it's kind of obvious what the problem is. So if you turn the board over, there is a really bad scorch mark on this one spot. And there was a little more soot there that I took off. So I'll show you what's going on with it. If you look really close, okay, so let's look at this first and then compare it to this, right? So these are connections on this relay here. All right, so this is how it should look, right? Now look how this one looks. It's burnt all to crap and has basically smoked the trace. So I'll show you what's going on. So essentially, whenever these are soldered on the board, the pin comes off of this relay here, and then it's supposed to connect to this trace, which runs over to these couple connections here. There's also a little tiny connection right there that goes through the board. So those connections are for one of the harness, one of the plugs. So who knows? It's not really all that important. Basically, what happened was this relay basically turns on and off, sending power to different things. It probably sends power to the motor on the that actually turns the dryer, which is probably why everything worked fine until you hit start. Then it clicks, and then after a second it goes to the F-01 error that everybody's getting. It figures out, hey, the motor didn't turn on. So the relay is trying to work, but the way these relays work is there's actually a moving part inside. So a coil is turned on, which makes the part move, and so it moves power by connecting a couple connections points only whenever the relay is turned on. So what happened probably 5 years ago, this is probably a 10-year-old board. What happened probably 5 years ago was one of these connections that looked like this got what's called cold solder. So sometimes whenever you run a lot of juice through a connection, after a while the connection actually starts separating from the board. So it may have just been that originally the solder wasn't mixed on there well, or whatever, who knows. But basically the way it's trying to work is this post here that's on the bottom of the relay, and this post, and this post. You know, that's how all electronics work on PCBs. This post is trying to connect to this trace on the board. This green line that you're seeing is copper underneath the board. So it's trying to connect from here to here, and the power is trying to go through that trace. But once this got where the connection was bad, it started jumping across the connection. So where you had a good solid piece of metal, and then it's trying to get to the copper on this trace, but the joint had got cold. So the electricity, since there's so much, amperage or whatever running through it, the electricity jumped the gap. And whenever it did that, it made a little spark. And so that spark started burning the board. And so every time I've been turning this dryer on, it's working, but there's a little spark jumping. Now, unbeknownst to me, because it's inside the machine, you don't see it. And so after it does this for a while, it starts burning everything up just from the spark, So we are now to the point where that pin is no longer connected to the trace, and it's not close enough that the electricity can even jump the gap. So to fix it, what we need to do is clean this up, because all of this soot on the pin you can't solder to. But we're going to clean that up, get it nice and shiny metal, put solder on it, and then you can try to solder it back to this trace. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little jumper from here to here. And since we usually work on arcade games, I've got all these little capacitors, and I've got legs on them. So I'm going to cut one of these legs off, just because it's a little piece of metal that is easily soldered, and I'm going to connect it from there over to there. So you don't have to necessarily connect it right to the trace where it's supposed to go, because the whole purpose of the trace is to take the electricity from here over to here, right? So if you connect it from here over to here, you're essentially making a new trace. Now, the way this mounts in that box, like you saw, it kind of needs to be flat. I guess it wouldn't matter much if it was all sticking up or whatever, but I'm going to try to make it as flat as I can so it'll snap back down in there and everything's the way it's supposed to be. But basically, we need to just repair that connection, and that should fix it. Now, sometimes whenever you have things burnt up on a board, it's because something catastrophic happened. So for instance, there are some diodes down here and things. So those diodes, if they go bad, it might smoke something and burn something up too. But all of this looks really good. It looks to me like what was happening was there was just too much power going through that for the design. So they probably should have made that trace a little bigger. They didn't make it smaller to cut corners or to lower the price or anything. It is copper, so I mean there is a price involved to it, but they could have just as easily made that trace bigger. They just didn't realize that it was going to do this, And then also, this dryer's like 10 years old. So in their mind, they're not really making dryers that they want to work for 20, 30 years in the first place. If I got 10 years out of it, they probably considered that a pretty solid investment. But I want another 10 years out of it. Heck, I might even want 30 years out of it, right? So I'm going to replace that connection, and we'll see if that fixes it. So this is how it looks after I've cleaned it up a little bit. You can see I scraped back some of the green masking that's over the copper, so you can see how it needs to look to clean it up a little bit. And then I also cleaned up the pin a little bit so it's nice and shiny. And you could probably just solder right back to this trace again, but we've already had it burn up once, so I'm going to just put a jumper. So maybe I'll get 15 years out of it this time. So here's what I ended up with. I put one of the little legs, the little capacitor legs on it, just to make it a metal bridge, and then put solder all over it, tons of solder. And you can get as cute with it as you want, but basically as long as there is metal connecting here to here, you're good. So you can use a wire if you want. If you've got a little piece of scrap wire or something, you just need to make a good little jumper for it. So let's see if we can put it back in the case and see what happens. Cleaned it up a little bit. It actually burnt the plastic a little bit from the sparking, and we should be able to just push this right back down in place. All right, and then put our little cover back on. Like so. Now we're back where we were. Okay, so I've mounted the board back on it, and I'm going to go ahead and plug all of the harness in while it's up in the air, a little bit easier to get to. and then we'll lay it back in and put the 2 screws in. I've also already replaced the screw that was here, and it just snaps back in just the way we took it out. At some point while you're doing all this, you need to clean out all the lint that you can find too. Lint is flammable, so if you can help it, get it out of there. So we found little pieces of lint all over the place, so we're trying to clean it up a little bit. Nobody's been inside this thing for 10 years or so. Yours will probably look similar. Okay, so we've got everything mounted back in there. We're going to go ahead and put the top back on it. Just 3 little screws in the back, and no problem. So we're going to just simply reinstall the top, get it lined up, slide it back into the front, and then put your 3 screws back in the back. And we have reinstalled our 3 screws, so you know what that means. It's about time to test this thing out and see what we got here. Alright, we slid it back against the wall, and it is the moment of truth, folks. Did I fix it? Did this just save me over $100 on a new control board? Now, logically, you know, if you're watching this video, then yeah, I fixed it. I wouldn't upload a video where I didn't fix the damn thing. I'd delete the video. Lord only knows how many videos I've filmed where I didn't fix what I was trying to fix and you never saw the video. Maybe one day I'll put out a blooper reel. But let's see here. Now, and another thing, I don't know that yet. I'm just saying this while I'm filming the video. So I'll look real cool if this fixed it. But if this didn't fix it, I'll just delete the video. So here we go. Okay, it's still turning on, but it was doing that before. So the way this one works, you can turn up the time and everything, and then if you hit this start button, that's what starts it. So what it was doing before is when I hit the start button, I heard a like sparking, and then the motor would not start. So let's see if we fixed it. Holy moly! Holy moly! We fixed it. So there you go. Fixed it for free, people. Now, if you don't have a soldering iron, you know, you may have not been able to fix it for free, but I've got a soldering iron, so hey, there you go. Maybe everybody should have a soldering iron. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really hope that this helps some people out there fix theirs for free. Leave your comments below and let me know what you think. Give me a thumbs up for fixing my own dryer and filming it for you. And I'll see you on the next video. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, we fix mainly arcade games, pinball machines, video games, stuff like that. But I guess a pinball repairman can fix a dryer every once in a while. See you on the next video.